Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Hump Day edition of the Yard. 10 days away. 10 days away from the beginning of the 2023 Mississippi State football season. How cool is that? We're getting there, kids. Reminder, Dad, get your honeydew stuff done this weekend. I'm being your friend here. I keep laboring this point because I don't want you to have one guilty moment watching football. Have all your stuff done. Matter of fact, I got some stuff I got to do today. Wife's coming home today, so I got some stuff I got to do. A couple of things that, you just kind of learn to live with for a while. You just kind of becomes part of the scenery. You walk by it. Then one day I got to get there and fix that. Got to get that claw hammer out, a couple of nails, and tack some stuff up. Got to get some stuff done, man. You know how it is. Especially when you've had your significant other away for a little bit. You want them to come back to a clean house and maybe some things done. So think about those you love. Make their life a little bit easier. And also to ease your own conscience a little bit, right? It's not all for everybody else. Sometimes it's very self-serving. Got to get things done around here so I can enjoy the things that I want to enjoy. So encourage you again. Make good use of the weekend because come next weekend and pretty much every weekend the rest of the year, you're going to have an opportunity to watch college football, and you want to be able to do that guilt-free. Get it done. Mom, if you hadn't done your game day shopping, you hadn't planned out your stuff and kind of got the family outfitted, you need to act now. We look forward to having you all here in Starkville, and the university announced earlier this week season tickets for Mississippi State football are sold out. We knew it was going to happen. Once the countdown kind of began, we knew it was simply a matter of time. Now, if you did not have the ability or the finances, perhaps, to secure season tickets for yourself, you can still, do the flex plan. Still, that little flex plan deal they have, you can still get that. And there are also some single game tickets available. You say, Steve, how can that be? Well, you don't allocate everything for season tickets, right? So we expect to have a handful of single game sellouts this year. But if you didn't get season tickets, there will still be some tickets to be had through the Mississippi State ticket office. I'm very much an advocate for that. You need to make sure to check the Mississippi State ticket office first before you go to SeatGeek and StubHub and places like that, or Facebook Marketplace. And you can buy tickets at face value rather than having to go and pay all these fees. In addition to that, too, you're not going to get scammed by buying through the ticket office. There was I guess it was StubHub. We were in Omaha in 2021, and Ani and Betsy and my lovely granddaughter Vivi came to celebrate the finals with us, and they bought some tickets through StubHub, and then had trouble getting the tickets delivered, and had to miss game one of the finals. That's a long way to drive to not have tickets. Now, we lost that game, and StubHub did make it right. We were able to get some better tickets, got upgraded for the other two games, but that's a lot of anxiety you don't want to deal with. So buying direct from the Mississippi State ticket office is always, always, always your best option. You get certified tickets at face value, a little bit of a convenience fee, rather than going out there on the third-party market and hoping you don't get scammed. And even though these people say your tickets are guaranteed, they may give you your money back, but you don't get your money back for the money you wasted on your hotel room, your gas, meals, and things like that. So be sure to secure your tickets whenever possible through the Mississippi State ticket office. I'm being your friend here and letting you know that is the best way to go. Always, always, always check there first. You could do it online. Go there, pick out the seating charts, available tickets, and you can pick your tickets. And then next thing you know, you've got your digital ticket right there on your phone. Very, very convenient. Now, like it was years ago. I'm from the 1900s when there was no internet. And you'd have to walk up there and buy a ticket at in a long line at the ticket office and things like that. And kind of go from there. So a lot of convenience these days, but it also makes it easier for people to scam you. We have a ticket board over at genespage.com as well, and we have made that VIP to kind of keep these interlopers, these people that set up some fake account and come in there and want to scam you out of your hard-earned money. There's nothing we can do, to compensate you, but we do our best to ensure that it's only verified members that are a part of the ticket forum. But nevertheless, excited about these season tickets being sold out. Of course, first time since 2015. And capacity is not what it once was due to the balconies. But all of that said, you can still buy tickets to bring your kids to games or come with friends or family or reunite with some friends from college. Or maybe if you didn't even go to school at State, you're just a big fan, you can still get tickets. You're just not going to be able to get season tickets because those have been completely exhausted. And good on you, Bulldog fans, for making that happen. Good on you. A lot of people are talking about it today. Well, how many tickets are there? Does it matter? The bottom line is this. It's this fan base is lining up behind Zach Arnett and this staff and this football program. We're ready to move forward, expecting a really big year this year here in Stark Vegas. Make Bulldog Burger Company part of your game day experience whenever you can. Bulldog Burger Company, a great place to work, a great place to dine. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harbor Drive in the Ridge and Flowwood area. Maybe stop on your way, because when you come on game day in Starkville, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to wait a little while. It's a great place to go chill and hang out before or after ball game. But maybe if you're coming up from the south, you swing through the Lake Harbor Drive location. You're coming in from the northeast, swing through Tupelo. And have that great restaurant quality hamburger. Get the spring rolls as your appetizer that make you and everybody around you better looking. I love Bulldog Burger Company. I will be there this week to enjoy their fine cuisine. Probably going to get that Nutella shake to go too. Definitely got to get the spring rolls. Looked in the mirror this morning. I said, you know what? I'm a little bit spring roll deficient. Got to fix that. Maybe drink a water, get some spring rolls, kind of get my youthful exuberance back. Meet you guys next week, and you'll be wanting to get a picture with me. I want to make sure I'm looking my best. So thanks to Bulldog Burger Company, I can do that. Be sure and check them out. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet, M-E-A-T. All right, it is the home debut of the Zach Arnett era. And even though Zach Arnett is 1-0, of course, the bowl game was his debut. I took the liberties of kind of looking back here and said, okay, look, we've had a pretty good run here with home debuts and even season openers for basically a generation or more at Mississippi State. In fact, you got to go all the way back to 1979. I know, young people, that sounds like a century ago, but it wasn't. Your good friend, the host, was in the second grade then. Miss Barbara Hale was my second grade teacher. I wrote my first book as a seventh grader, cut out some pictures of the paper, got some notebook paper and a stapler, wrote a little story, stapled it together, and then she criticized me for my penmanship. So I've had critics from the very beginning as an author. But all that said, that's the last time that a new Bulldog football coach lost a season opener in year one. Emery Ballard, of course, was replaced by Rocky Felker, one of our favorite sons. Man, we love Rocky, don't we? We absolutely do. Love Rocky. Love that family. Rocky opened up as your new coach in 1986. First ball game of the Rocky Felker era came on the road at Syracuse. We went up to the Carrier Dome and won that ball game 24-17. The next week, we traveled to Knoxville, Tennessee, and beat the Volunteers, the number 8 Volunteers in Neyland Stadium, 27-23. You've seen the big Don Smith run. It's been a highlight of our program, for much of the last 40 years or so. It's true. The next week, we lose to Southern Miss, and we beat Florida. We beat Memphis. We beat Arkansas State. We beat Tulane. We rise to as high as 13 in the polls and never could quite get there. we lose out to close out the year. Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Ole Miss, and only scored 12 points combined in those final 4 ball games. But we were offered the opportunity. This is back before the SEC kind of put the bowl pairings together. We were offered the opportunity to play in the Independence Bowl with a 6-1 record. We elected to pass on that and thought, we're going to find a way to win a couple games down the stretch. We're going to go to a major bowl game. We didn't. We didn't go to any bowl game. We finished the year 6-5. And again, that's a year that we were as high as 13 in the country. And that ended up not playing a postseason ball game. But a decent first year for Rocky. Things really didn't go well from there, and obviously we end up making a change, just a few years later. I mean, Rocky, again, a beloved son of Mississippi State. Things just didn't work out the way we had hoped with him as a head coach. And at the time, he was the youngest head coach in college football. People forget that too. Looking back too, Dave Rader was our offensive coordinator back in '86. But '87, we go 4-7. '88 is the infamous Tech and 10 year. We open up winning 21-14 against Louisiana Tech in a very tightly contested ball game. We won that game 21-14, and things just kind of went south from there. '89, Rocky gets back to 5 wins, and then '90, same situation. We felt like we were kind of back on the right track in '89. '90, we matched that again with a 5-6 record. And ultimately made a change. Had a tough time winning egg bowls and things of that nature. But in '91, we bring in Jackie Sherrill. Now, a lot of people remember, like, their first big memory of Jackie Sherrill as our coach is the big win over Texas, number 13 Texas. Well, that was actually week 2 of the 1991 season. Mississippi State beat Cal State Fullerton. The Titans made their way to Stark Vegas, and we beat them 47-3. The next week, we beat Texas to move to 2-0. And then we take down Tulane, absolutely destroyed them, made a debut at number 25 in the polls. Lose at Neyland to number 6 Tennessee, 26-24, in a game that many people feel like we should have won. It was a big, big game. We didn't. Could you imagine what it would have been like in Starkville if we'd be able to pull that off and be 4-0, probably ranked in the top 15 in the country? We lose the next week in Orlando. Back in those days, we sold home games, basically rented stadiums out in other places, and we lose to Florida. I mean, I don't know how anybody could consider a home game against Florida in Orlando as a home game for us. We bounce back to beat Kentucky, then lose to Memphis State. That was probably kind of the outlier on the schedule. Bounce back to beat Auburn. Nearly pulled off the upset of number 7 Alabama at Bryant-Denny. We lose 13-7. We beat LSU and then beat Ole Miss and advanced to the Liberty Bowl where we lost to Air Force 38-15. I watched that ball game at Pine Grove Recovery. How about that? But we had some good years under Jack. Hey, Bulldog fans, are you on the go? Is it more difficult than ever to find something healthy and wholesome to eat? I tell you what, let us help you with our friends at HelloFresh. Had great experiences with them in the past. You can take a bite out of summer yourself with HelloFresh. From chef-crested seasonal recipes to their new fresh and fit summer menu, HelloFresh brings flavor right to your door. And here's the thing, too. It doesn't have to just be the same old thing, right? Sometimes you get caught in the habits. They have these new menus, and they have new options for you that make dining a pleasure. Make your home the hangout place this summer with crowd-pleasing eats from a backyard bratwurst to tangy key lime pie. HelloFresh Market makes summer entertaining a cinch. Be sure and check them out. We're going to make it easy for you. Go to HelloFresh.com/Boneyard50. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/Boneyard50. And you wonder what the 50 stands for? Yeah, it gets you 50% off plus free shipping. How about that? 50% off plus free shipping. Again, that's HelloFresh.com/Boneyard50. We've all been there before. You got big weekend plans. For some reason, it just didn't work out. Maybe life gets in the way. Maybe you want to head down to the casino. Maybe take some of their money. I like to do that. Well, my bookie's new and improved online casino is here to change the game for you. Dive into truly realistic casino experiences featuring the latest in slots, progressive jackpots, and live dealer action, all from the comfort of your own home. Take advantage of weekly blackjack tournaments and a brand new collection of high-end games for a chance at real cash rewards. The MyBookie Casino provides a Las Vegas experience when the action's in your hands. And the best part is you don't even have to wear pants. How cool is that? Your adventure at the MyBookie Casino begins today with a generous sign-up bonus using promo code Boneyard. That's promo code Boneyard to secure yourself a sweet deposit bonus. And that's not all. Because their revamped loyalty program ensures that you'll be showered with rewards, including free spins, cashback offers, and a host of exclusive VIP perks, the more you play, the more you'll win. Play anytime, anywhere with the MyBookie Casino. Again, that's promo code Boneyard. Hey, Bulldog fans, do you enjoy live entertainment like I do? I'm always going to rock shows or going to ball games. I'm always going somewhere that requires a ticket. So when you're looking for tickets to your next game, concert, or show, make shopping for tickets a little bit easier with TickPick, the original no-fee ticket marketplace that brings you the best prices for all the events you love. And now, TickPick is partnering with Zip, so you can shop now and pay later. How cool is that? Zip allows you to shop at TickPick and split your payment into easy monthly installments. Visit TickPick.com and use promo code ZIP20 for $20 off your first purchase of $199 or more with Zip. Zip can only be used for U.S. purchases, and Zip may charge a fee at checkout. Certain merchant products, goods, and service restrictions may apply. See Zip's terms of service at www.zip.co/US. Loans to the Zip app are originated by WebBank, except for Zip-originated loans in Colorado, Nevada, Massachusetts, and Maryland. Shop for all your tickets at TickPick.com and check out with Zip to split your payments into easy installments. Zip makes it easier than ever before to get your tickets now and pay for them later at TickPick.com. Check out with Zip at TickPick.com. And we had some other years that were just kind of, disappointing, shall we say. We get to the 92 season and have a 7-5 record and lose to Peach Bowl to North Carolina. We felt like, hey, we're in good shape. 93, we go 4-5-2 with first-year offensive coordinator Bruce Arians. That name may sound familiar to you. In 94, we kind of right the ship a little bit, end up 8-3 in a regular season. We lose to Peach Bowl again to NC State. 1995, we go 3-8. Everybody was like calling for Arians to go. He did. We brought in Lynn Amity in 96. We go 5-6. And people were like, okay, this has probably run its course. But in 97, things began to change. 97, the Bulldogs go 7-4, and those of you that were alive back then remember, the winner of the Egg Bowl was going to get a chance to go play in the Motor City Bowl. Well, that proved to be Ole Miss. That's the Corey Peterson 2-point conversion deal. Hazelwood missed a big field goal. I thought we mismanaged that situation. Probably should not have played quite as conservatively, but we did, trying to set up a field goal to kind of give us a little room to operate here. We end up losing it. Ole Miss goes on to win the Motor City Bowl against Marshall and Randy Moss. We sat home with a 7-4 record. But it was a winning year. 1998, of course, a year that we'll never forget. Jackie Sherrill and the Bulldogs win the SEC West for the only time in school history. We lose to eventual NAFL champion Tennessee in the SEC championship game, 24-14. You recall, though, State had a 14-10 lead in that fourth quarter because lightning has struck. Remember that? The Kevin Prentice punt return? It was a defensive slobber knocker much of that ball game. And then we lose the Cotton Bowl. 99, we're right back in the thick of things and really got off to a great start, even though a lot of people didn't fully appreciate how good we were that year. State goes and takes on number 11 Alabama as an undefeated team. Pretty crazy in hindsight. We're 8-0 and ranked 8th in the country. And go play Alabama. We lose the ball game 19-7. The big moment in that game was Shamari Buchanan. They've been setting up to play the entire ball game. Running that little bubble screen, running the bubble screen, and he had been kind of a lead blocker out there for much of the ball game. And then late, when they had it set up, we bite on the bubble. They pump fake, and Buchanan slips out behind us and goes in for a touchdown to put them up 19-7, which is the final score. It was a 12-7 ball game. I remember Kelvin Love had a couple big catches earlier. We just could not get things going offensively. And then basically Bama beats us twice. We lose the next week in Little Rock to Arkansas. You remember Fred Smoot had an incredible interception returned. It was negated by a false block in the back penalty. We dropped the game 14-9, removed all possibility of returning to Atlanta. We did bounce back to beat Ole Miss and ultimately won the Peach Bowl against Clemson. One of the better years in Mississippi State football history. Things began to unravel a little bit in 2000, even though we had a good year. Should have gone to the Outback Bowl. Ended up having the Snow Bowl there, the Independence Bowl. And in 2001, you're 3-8. Things did not get better. 2002, we're 3-9. 2003, we're 2-10. 2-10. Terrible. Managed to win one SEC game that year against Vanderbilt and then beat Memphis. We had back-to-back wins there that made us 2-4, and you thought maybe, just maybe, but no. The league was really good that year, and we were not. So we make a coaching change, and we bring in Sylvester Croom, and I still submit to you that one of the main reasons Sylvester Croom was a candidate for our job is basically how he was treated at Alabama. I don't know that he really, truly got a fair shake. They elected to hire Mike Shula over Sylvester Croom. The thing that Croom did that was much different, our reputation around college football at Mississippi State at the time in the later years of the Jackie Sherrill era is that, we had a bunch of Bolsheviks. We had a bunch of guys that just kind of were undisciplined, people that didn't handle their business on and off the field. Fair or unfair, that was our reputation. And I remember being in an alumni event down in New Orleans and heard Sylvester Croom, and he told us that's the reputation of the NFL about Mississippi State players, is that they're undisciplined. Now, true or untrue, that's what he said. So he, promised to restore some discipline to our program. Of course, Coach Croom went and spoke before the Committee on Infractions at the end of our NCAA investigation and said, I will never be back here. Never. And he meant it. And he ran a bunch of players off, and I think he probably didn't need to do that. I think we tried maybe a little bit too hard and overcorrected in many respects. There were some players that got run off for really kind of minor things, and I think we were way too hard-edged. But those that remained were very disciplined. They may not have been extremely talented, but they played exceptionally hard. We opened up the Sylvester Croom era with a 28-7 win over Tulane. So the third consecutive coach of that generation wins the season opener of their first official season. We got blasted by Auburn the next week. We lose the main game. That's one of those ones that even now in hindsight you look back and it just doesn't compute. But we did. Had a chance to put that game away, make it a 14-3 game. Fred played well for us, but sadly that's how most people remember him. Fred with a big fumble going into the end zone. They would have put the game away. Maine puts a drive together, goes down, scores, beats us 9-7. Then we get absolutely destroyed at LSU, 51-0. Vandy gets us 31-13, and UAB gets us 27-13. Those are games you can't lose, but we did. Again, I think that goes back to kind of the purging of the roster. And somehow, some way, we found a way to beat Florida 38-31. Remember how crazy that was? It's nuts, man. You look back, again, we lost to Maine, Vandy, and UAB and managed to upset number 20 Florida. The next week, we bounce back and take care of Kentucky. So you look up, you say, hey, we're 3-4. Can you find a way to win out? No. We had to go to Alabama. Played them tough, but we lost. Lose by a field goal to Arkansas, and then lose the Egg Bowl 20-3. But a lot of people felt like, hey, we're headed in the right direction here. We're not especially talented, but we did play hard. 2005, we go 3-8. 2006, we go 3-9. And a lot of people are, calling for a coaching change. But there are a lot of people also that said, you know what, let's give Croom one more year, see how things go. What does he do? We get back to respectability. We go 7-5 in a regular season. We win the Liberty Bowl over Central Florida to cap the season with a 10-3 W. Derek Pegues, your most outstanding player of the ball game. Sylvester Croom was later awarded SEC Coach of the Year. Good stuff. And we thought, okay, all right, we're going in the right direction. And then 2008 happens, and we go 4-8. And it was terrible. I shared this story on the genespage.com message boards earlier this week. You know, we had won 3 games at this point. We open up and lose the Louisiana Tech game. And people forget that Louisiana Tech game, we came out on fire. Wes Carroll takes us right down the field, and, you know, it's just nuts, man. I mean, you look up and you're like, oh, what's happening here? Okay, all right, we're good. And then we muff a punt. And it's like that game, Derek Pegues was suspended. We had Jamel Smith fielding punts for us. It just didn't go well for us. And we lose the ball game 22-14. Did not play well outside of that first quarter. And we lose. The next week, we played Southeastern Louisiana, our season opener again this year for the first time. Beat those guys 34-10. We were not impressive. Even though we won, we get down 3-0 in that ball game. And then in the middle quarters, we push it out 34-3. Kroom was one of those kind of guys that liked to take his foot off the gas. The next week is the infamous 3-2 ball game with Auburn. Then we get blasted at Georgia Tech. We have a pretty competitive game down at Tiger Stadium, but we were never really in striking distance to those guys, even though we lost by 10. Tyson Lee kind of made his debut in that ball game and did some interesting things. The next week we beat Vanderbilt. Carlin Brown's shining moment. Under-recruited and undersized linebacker from Lincoln High School in Tallahassee, Florida, has a pick basically to end the game for us. And Vanderbilt was ranked 13th in the country at that time. It wasn't your typical Vandy team. We get blasted by Tennessee. Then we beat Middle. And you think, okay, all right, we've won 2 of the last 3. You got 3 wins. You got 4 games left. Can you get 3 of the last 4? And the truth of the matter is it seemed feasible at the time. And one of those was Alabama. So you knew you weren't going to get Alabama. Even though you had beaten Alabama back-to-back years. You just felt like Alabama with Nick Saban was at a different level at that point. And they were. We lose to Kentucky 14-13. That game we missed an extra point and had a field goal late. Adam Carlson had one go off the upright. We ended up losing the ball game, which basically removed all possibility of us becoming bowl eligible because we were not going to be able to get Alabama. And Greg Byrne went to the Bryant Building. We didn't have the Seal Complex then. And I remember talking to Greg after the fact. He said he was so distraught about the loss, he decided to get some work done. And he looked up a couple hours into his day, and none of our football coaches were there. And it's like it's the day after a debilitating loss. Why would we not be up there trying to find a way? Especially since we'd beaten Alabama back-to-back years. You know, we'd think, okay, let's put a game plan together and see if we can't salvage something this season. We didn't. And that's kind of when the thought process began about, you know what, we got to make a change. We get beat by Alabama 32-7. We bounce back on senior day to beat Arkansas 31-28. They had a late field goal attempt, too, to try to tie it. It didn't work out. But we played exceptionally well in that ball game. Even though Arkansas wasn't a great team, we still found a way to get a dub. And then we go to Ole Miss and we get beat 45-0. Now, remember, I've got people that I trust and know very well said the bottom line was this. We just needed to go be competitive against Ole Miss. If we could win, huge bonus. But if we can go out there and compete, you give Kroom another year and give him the opportunity, of course, to hire Al Borges as the offensive coordinator. Former Auburn offensive coordinator Woody McCorvey was beginning to have some health issues. We get beat 45-0. And to be honest with you, Ole Miss could have beat us. They could have named their score that day. We had some guys quit in that ball game. Brandon McCray, great guy, man, had a terrible injury on that terrible turf up there. We had some guys that just did not do what they needed to do, and that was the end of the Sylvester Kroom era. And, of course, we bring in Mullen in 2009. He gets Jackson State. We win that game 45-7, which, again, makes him the 4th consecutive coach to win season opener in his first official season. That year, we ended up going 5-7, and we should have gone to a bowl game. You remember that Houston ball game? Right, we had the completion of Leon Berry down the field. They called us for a legal forward pass, and Mullen didn't challenge it. And he said in postgame, that was my mistake. It was a game-changing play. And then late, we're driving down trying to tie the game, and we have a fumble at the mesh point, man. We're trying to run a little zone read there, and Tyson Lee, and I think it was AD, but either way, we fumbled the football. We lose to a decent Houston team, a game we should have won. Play Florida pretty close up here. We just didn't have the horses, right? That's the Jonathan Banks 2-pick game, right? And then the LSU game is the one that sticks out to me. We lose that game 30-26, and we make a play on special teams, get Chad Jones on the ground, you win the game. That's the game, too, where we tried to do the jump pass to Marcus Green, and then Tyson Lee had a chance to either give it to Dixon or pitch it to Ducray, and he elects to take it, and they stop him short of the goal line. The talk of that post-game locker room is the stuff of legends. It's a game we absolutely should have won. So, of course, Mullen, 2010, we had the big year, go 9-4, win the Gator Bowl, destroy Michigan. 2011, we reached the end of a talent cycle, but still managed to get a bowl win and a winning season, 6-6 regular season, then a win over Wake Forest in the Music City Bowl. 2012, we lose the Gator Bowl to Northwestern. Really didn't play well in that ball game. And Tyler Russell loved that kid to death. That's probably not his shining moment. He had a tough ball game. But we lost to a team that was good, but they weren't as good as us. 2013, this is the beginning of the Dak Prescott era in some respects. Still Tyler Russell's team, but Tyler got banged up against Oklahoma State. It kind of lingered. But 2013, we have the Egg Bowl win. Dak comes in that triumphant fourth quarter. And then we go on to beat Rice, 51-3, whatever it was, something ridiculous like that. And I remember some people thinking Rice was going to get us. Well, no, they didn't. Of course, 14, we finished the year 10-3, lose the Orange Bowl, 2014, one of the best years in Mississippi State football history. 2015, Dak's senior year, we underachieved, even though we went 9-4. I think even with that, in hindsight, people say, we dropped some games we shouldn't, especially that one to LSU early in the year. We really, really, really should have won that ball game. And then we win the Belk Bowl and send Dak off on a winning note. 16, of course, the losing year, but we get in the APR. We beat Miami of Ohio. It was good. It was. Nelson Adams' biggest highlight, got to go to postgame, blocking the field goal to end the ball game. Nick Fitzgerald, decent ball game for him. 2017, of course, under Mullen, the final year. He did not coach a ball game. Greg Knox did. We win and finished the year 9-4. And again, I think most people look back and think that's another year where we missed some opportunities. Felt like, too, with Ty Grantham, we had finally, Mullen had maybe found his guy on defense that kind of matched his same level of intensity. Couldn't get it done. 2018, the debut of the Joe Moorhead era. And, the thing that I remember about this, and there was so much conversation about this, is, Joe was supposed to be, the dude, right? I mean, hey, this is the number one offensive coordinator in the country, the top, coaching candidate out there, the next coordinator that's going to rise to be a Power 5 head coach. He comes in here. We have a preseason top 20 team. We blast Stephen F. Austin 63-6. And I understand there was a big talent differential in this matchup. But the thing that impressed me about this game is schematically, we had guys running wide open all the time. We ran so much out there with, misdirection, things like that. Osiris Mitchell was just absolutely open all day long. And Osiris Mitchell was a good player for us. He wasn't an elite player by any stretch of the imagination. But schematically, it looked like, okay, well, this is going to make a little sense. Then we go to Kansas State, and we beat those guys up there in Little Apple 31-10, kind of the coming-out party for Colin Hill. You think, okay, we found something. Then we blast UL Lafayette 56-10. We're good, right? We got one of the best defenses in the country. And then we go to Kentucky and lay an absolute egg. And people forget, Brian Cole made a big interception in the second half. It gave us a chance to kind of climb back into this, despite the fact we had some terrible officiating and some very undisciplined play. We went backwards on the drive, and the next thing you know, Benny Snell runs in for a touchdown and really puts the game away. It was a terrible, terrible night. And a lot of people were off the bandwagon. They said, you know what? We played Dan Mullen in Florida next week. You beat Dan, all's forgiven. And we went out there, and we didn't play well. We lose 13-6. Defensively, we're outstanding. And if you remember the difference in the ballgame, Jonathan Abram goes down with a bit of an injury. He does come back. But while he's out, we bring in the backup safety, who was a walk-on, and Mullen dials up the double pass. And, of course, an inexperienced player bites on the bubble, lets a guy get behind him, ends up being a difference in the game. And offensively, all of a sudden, we began to really question ourselves. And offense was an issue just about the rest of the year. But we do get Auburn. We lose at LSU. And again, same situation defensively. We absolutely played lights out. Couldn't score. You beat A&M. You beat Louisiana Tech. We lose at Alabama. That's the famous Jeff Batts game where Colin Hill dives into the end zone, and they call that fake block in the back on Dedrick Thomas. Cost Jeff Batts his SEC officiating job too. You blast Arkansas and Chad Morris. You beat Ole Miss to death. That's the moment. In many respects, Joe kind of became our coach. That's when Joe made the comment. Not going to have this guy here popping off to my Ross Bjork, and that's when we had the flag planting deal, right? And a lot of people are like, you know what, Joe was our coach, now he's one of us. And then we looked so incredibly unprepared for the Outback Bowl. And Nick missed a couple reads in that ball game. But defensively, we're playing great. And next thing you know, we make a silly penalty and extend a drive for them. And they get a lead, and they began to believe we were the better team. But they won. They won the ball game. Of course, 2019, only 2 years for Joe Moorhead. 19, we were a team that were expected to kind of have modest expectations. We go 6-6, had to win the Egg Bowl to get bowl eligible. We lose to Louisville in the Music City Bowl. And I've said this before on the show, maybe you've forgotten. I knew Joe wasn't going to make it during post-game of the Music City Bowl, because he gets out this little talking point sheet. He says, I don't want the loss of this ball game to erase all the positives for this year. And I sat there and thought to myself, as much as I like Joe, Joe just doesn't get it. Joe just doesn't get it. We had so many problems that year, so many, and it was clear that we were running off the rails. And initially, you're like, okay, need to give the guy 3 years, right? We squandered a NAFL championship defense in 2018. In 2019, things are really trending in the wrong direction. And while I know that John Cohen is not some of you all's favorite person, he is a friend of mine. He made a difficult decision and fired Joe Moorhead after just 2 years. This didn't happen. It doesn't happen. But we fired him. We hired Mike Leach, and of course, then COVID rolls in. We don't know if we're going to have football. We do. And the first game of the Mike Leach era, we go down and beat the defending NAFL champion LSU Tigers in Tiger Stadium. The game was 44-34, but if KJ Costello doesn't miss on a couple throws, this is a huge blowout in favor of your Bulldogs. And, of course, the year did not go very well. We only won 2 more regular season games. We did get into the bowl game kind of by default, and we were able to win that ball game. And so that kind of brings us to where we are now. Of course, Leach, 21 the first winning season. We were 7-6. Lose the ball game, which really upset people. We lose the Egg Bowl and the bowl game, and you feel like things are starting to slip. And then last year, Leach and company really responded. So that brings us today, to Zach Arnett. And so Arnett, again, has already won the debut, but the first season opener of his career will take place on September 2nd. And he has a chance to be the 7th consecutive first-year Mississippi State head coach to win his debut. He's playing an FCS team. He certainly should. But I thought it'd be interesting, again, just to kind of go back and look in hindsight to see, kind of how things kind of paired up and how we've done. And again, you had to go all the way back to 1979 when a Bulldog coach lost the season opener in his first official season. So it's another streak that we expect to keep going. And hopefully we don't have to have this discussion again for several years. Hopefully Arnett is successful and is with us for several more years, and we don't have to talk about this streak. Right, and bear in mind there will be people that'll come up as we get into next week. These numbers. 6 consecutive Mississippi State head coaches have won their season opener debut, and so now you already know the history. You won't be surprised by that. You won't have to do the math because your good friend and host has taken you through that. It is time for today's Top 10 list. As always, brought to you by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R.com. Or you can reach him direct. Maybe Al Gore's internet is not a friend of yours. Maybe you haven't mastered all of that. Give him a call today or text 601-500-2344. Again, 601-500-2344. Blair has been in the mortgage industry 22 years. Nobody stays in any industry that long without a great measure of success, and that's Blair. Top 1% close ratio in the country back-to-back-to-back years. I've shared with you recently that it is now permissible for an 18-year-old to sign a mortgage document. Maybe you can utilize that to help them build some adult credit or perhaps get them into home ownership, right? A lot of great examples, and Blair can take you through all that. It's not a very complicated process, but it is something that has never been available before, at least not in the modern era. So reach out to Blair for all your mortgage needs. Again, 601-500-2344. All right. It struck me today we have not done a top 10 list of one of my favorite bands. I love this band, and I love the fact that they're so positive. They're a band that does at times sing about some very dark things. It's a band called Disturbed. And you would say, Steve, how can a band called Disturbed be positive? Well, they are. In the infancy of my Twitter relationship, David Draymond, a singer from Disturbed, was a guy that used to interact with from time to time. And he's very responsive to his Twitter followers back then. Ultimately left Twitter for a while due to anti-Semitism. Yeah, it's true. Dave Draymond is a devout Jew. He was a guy that was raised in a very, very, very devout family, rejected those teachings for many years, elected to come back into the faith. It's one of the reasons he doesn't have tattoos, because he ultimately wants to be buried in a Jewish cemetery. Yeah, true story. Dave is also a guy that has struggled some with addiction issues. He's a guy that has battled depression. He recently had a big speech on stage about some of those things. Got divorced earlier this year. You may recall that he was married, for you WWE fans, he was married to Lena for over a decade. They have children together. And he went through the loss of his marriage and family in many respects, and battled some demons and depression issues, and has been very open and transparent about that. And so we're going to talk about that a little bit later in the list. But for those of you that follow Disturbed, they've had some really big covers. They had a huge hit with their cover of Simon and Garfunkel's classic song, The Sound of Silence. It is an incredible rendition of that track. Land of Confusion from Genesis, that was a big hit for them as well. They even covered Faith No More's Midlife Crisis. That's on the compilation album Lost Children. Gets kind of like some B-sides. It didn't make an album or whatever, but they've done a great job with covers. And so if you would like to check those out, you should. A couple tracks that didn't make our list today is Bad Man, that was re-released here about 2 months ago. They had a new mix they released, and a track called Unstoppable. Yeah, very, very inspirational track. And again, I like Dave Draymond's approach to life. I appreciate his transparency, but this is a guy, too, from the very first time that I saw the video for our number one song, I thought, you know what? These guys are going to be around. Incredible guitar, incredible vocals, and Dave Draymond is kind of unlike anybody else. Does a great job of working kind of the grunt and then the melody. It's a little different deal. All right, number 10, a great track is Are You Ready? Yeah, and it's one of those songs, too, where you can just kind of feel it. There's some authenticity in what Dave's talking about. Are you ready? And that could be a number of things, right? Are you ready? And a lot of it's just about the next part of your life. Because many of us lead an accidental life, and I've been guilty of that at times in my life, too. I got old in my 30s. I did. I look back at some pictures of myself. I don't even recognize that guy, man. I think I look older back then than I do today. Got a few more wrinkles these days, a few more gray hairs, but got old in my 30s. I did. Number 9, the title track from their second album. They had a great debut, The Sickness. And they followed it up with an album called Believe. Our number 9 song is the title track from that album, Believe. Yeah, you're sensing a theme here, right? If you're looking for a band that is uplifting and they rock at the same time, Disturbed is your band. Number 8, What Are You Waiting For? Again, kind of sticking with the theme here, right? What are you waiting for? I mean, how many times in life, it's like we hear this when we're young. It's like if you wait for the right time, it'll never happen because it'll never be the right time. There's so many things in my life I look back over the pathology of my life, and it's like I always wanted to write books, just didn't know how to go about it. And it's like, you know what, I just have to do it, right? And kind of willed that into existence. And book number 6 will be out here in a few weeks. It's exciting. So what are you waiting for? What is it you've put off in your life? And it's not just about taking the big vacation or something like that or having that great experience, but what is it that you haven't accomplished in life? That's kind of what the song is about. What are you waiting for? You just waiting for somebody to discover you? It's not going to happen. You got to go make it happen for yourself. Number 7, a song of unity and defiance. Another title track, it's 10,000 Fists. That's right. It's basically about going to a show, right? You go to a show and the sellout crowd or whatever, and for a little while we can forget about being parents or paying bills or being a cog in a machine. We can just go enjoy life a little bit. And I experience a lot, man. It's like kind of like the whole Bodie thing from Point Break, right? It's like it's where I lose myself and find myself at the same time. I love going to shows. It's kind of a mental reset for me, just kind of being around my people. Number 6, it's Another Way to Die. Yeah, that's right. And again, it's a song, even though it's kind of about a negative topic. There's a negative connotation to this. That's kind of what it's about. It's like you make these mistakes in life. So much of this is a will to power within ourselves. I mean, how many times do you look back on your life and say, you know what, I'm the one that put myself in this situation. I'm the one that did this to myself. If I had made a better decision, right, that would be the deal, right? And so you get involved in negative things, and it's like I had a discussion with my wife this morning. I won't go into detail because I don't want to breach somebody else's privacy, but yes, it's amazing the situations we find ourselves in. And then we think, oh, well, I can't believe this happened to me. No. Sometimes life is accidental, but other times you make really stupid decisions. Like I know people, one of my favorite things is these people that get out here, well, things happen for a reason. Sometimes the reason is you're incredibly stupid. Yeah, and I think about your good friend and host. How many times have I put myself into a stressful and anxious situation because of my own bad decision? And that's even being as clean and sober. There's some like the dumb things that happen in my life. At the center of it all is me making a bad decision, or me doing something stupid, or just kind of waiting for something to happen, or going out there doing things that sometimes are beneath my moral and my moral fiber. Right? I mean, how many times did it happen? You start trying to convince yourself. Well, you talk yourself into it. Well, it's the right thing to do. And this person's mistreated me or whatever. And so you start justifying and rationalizing your own negative behavior. You put yourself in a bad spot. Number 5, a track called Inside the Fire. This is actually about Dave Draymond when he was a teenager, fell in love with this girl, and she was a drug addict, and eventually ended up killing herself. And that's what the song is about, is Inside the Fire. And at some point, we've all been touched by addiction, depression, anxiety, suicide. I wrote about that at length yesterday on my Facebook page. If you're a friend or a follower, you can go read that. The thing that I'm reminded of so much about life is like, look at all the things that I would have missed, right? You start thinking about that and the pathology of your own life and say, you know what, if I had done this, it's not to say that you have regrets, or sometimes you have these triumphant moments and say, you know what, the best thing I ever did was decide to keep fighting. Which leads us to number 4, and it's unlike any other song in the catalog, and it's unlike any song on our list. It's a great song called A Reason to Fight, and it's basically about beating back the demons of depression and suicidal thoughts and things of that nature. I get chills even talking about this song. It simply means so much to me, and that was what kind of sparked David's. You can find a speech on YouTube. It's a couple minutes long, and he talks about missing our friends, in music, missing Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, missing Chris Cornell, missing Scott Weiland. And he said, a couple months ago, I almost joined him. And that's a very powerful statement for somebody to admit that, because we always want to put our best foot forward. And one of the things I think is important to always remember is there are people around us. And I think about, my own children, right? And I think about your children. And here's the deal. Dad, you're the closest thing to Batman that your kids are ever going to know. And Mom, you're the closest thing to Wonder Woman they're ever going to know. because in their eyes, you're performing miracles, right? I know my parents made it look so easy. It's not easy. It's not easy. They hid a lot of stuff from me. Not that there was a lot of negativity in my life, but they hid that from me, as parents should. Children should not be involved in adult issues. They should know that your debit card is going to be declined if you go to the store. If you go to McDonald's, they should know that. You got to find a way to shield them from that. You can be transparent about life, but you shouldn't, kind of dump your stress on your children or the people that you love. And I've had friends in my life, in and out of addiction, that have killed themselves. And it's absolutely terrible. And I'll try not to get emotional talking about that. We've all experienced that level of loss. And I don't believe, my honest opinion is that pain, originated in the Garden of Eden, whether you think that's a metaphorical or a literal deal. It all began with Cain and Abel. That's when pain began, right? Crimes against each other. You can even go back to, the whole, forbidden fruit, right? And we've just been passing pain back and forth ever since. And when we make the decision to harm ourselves, the pain doesn't go away. It's just transferred to the people that we love and people that love us. And they're left with all these questions. They're left with all these worries and all these regrets that couldn't reach you. And it is okay to ask for help. And I'm going to take this part of the show to remind you, if you are thinking about hurting yourself or others, dial 988 on your phone. Just like calling 911, dial 988. There is help available. Anonymity guaranteed. You can talk to somebody. And the thing that I've learned about life, and I'm a guy sometimes that gets caught up in so much, man. I do. When I get tired or whatever, and I'm not productive. Those days when you just don't feel like doing anything, and by the end of the day, you're like, I've wasted this entire day. Sometimes you just need a minute. But other times you go through that and you start thinking, you know what, man, there's just not a lot to live for, right? And then all of a sudden you begin to think and you begin to work through your thoughts. And I like to get a gratitude list out, write down all the things I'm grateful for, and remind myself that I do have a reason to fight, that I've got a reason to live. And again, Mom, Dad, you're the only superhero your kids are ever going to know. Ever. Ever. And there's so many people out there that cheer, when the hero falls. But your kids aren't one of them. Your kids just but always can give you the benefit of the doubt. Because you're teaching them how to live. They're dependent on you. Not just to feed them and clothe them and that sort of stuff and make sure they got a roof over their heads. But to teach them how to navigate life. And sometimes it can be very difficult. It can be. So don't hesitate to reach out to somebody. There is no weakness in admitting you're hurting. Matter of fact, I think it's the complete opposite. I think there is strength in admitting your vulnerability. Rather than just try to go it alone, reach out to somebody. My DMs are always open, right? If you don't want to talk to me, if you're worried about me blabbing, you shouldn't. But if you are, dial 988 on your phone, and you can talk to somebody today because you truly have a reason to fight. Number 3. Back to the positivity. Even though a reason to fight is very positive. Talking about suicide can be difficult, right? But indestructible. I'm indestructible. And there are times I feel that way. There are some days I'll ride down the road, man, I'm gritting my teeth. I'm thinking, man, people better not get in my way, right? You have those days when you feel like everything is just kind of going your way. And that's how life is. And that's the thing I've learned too, is this too shall pass, right? It's true. Good times, bad times, and different times. The only constant in life is change. But man, those days when you feel like it's just on top of the world, like when you're driving to Starkville, right? When you live outside of the Golden Triangle and you're coming to a ball game, and it's like, I'm going to be with my people, man. I'm going to go out there and get my cowbell out, and everybody's wearing the same school colors, and we're going to go out here and destroy this football team or basketball team or baseball team. There's just a feeling of euphoria that associates that. It makes us feel like together we are indestructible. Number 2, back to the debut album, it's Down with the Sickness. Love that track. Love the vocal on it. Love the guitar riff on it. It's Down with the Sickness. But number 1 for me, the song that started it all, the debut single and the debut album, I remember back when MTV played music, and there were some other video channels. I can't remember the name of the like Much Music or something. you could dial in and you could pay like 50 cents or $1 on your phone and get a video played. And this is one that I did occasionally. Stupefy. The great song Stupefy. Love it. What a great debut single from a band that has had a tremendous amount of staying power. They took a little hiatus at times, but they're back and kicking tail, man. And love Disturbed, love Dave Draymond. And he is such an advocate for so many people that struggle. And that's the thing, too. There's so many times that people feel like they're alone. That's one thing Dave Draymond did when he gave the big speech in concert. Is he goes, raise your hand if you've been impacted by this or you know somebody or love somebody that has. And every hand in the arena goes up. And it's a reminder we're not alone. And that's what addiction and depression and other things do. They try to convince us that we are unique in our pain and we're going to die of terminal uniqueness. And nobody could ever love us. Nobody could ever understand us. I know. I've experienced those things. And I can tell you, it's like one of the things that I'm very honest about is, thankfully we're about a month away from Dana being done with travel nursing. And we'll be together every week. Either she'll be here, I'll be there. I'll get a chance to see her every week. But being away for her from a long time is not good for me. I'm just being honest, and that's not to be manipulative or to put this on her, but I have invested so much of my life, my love, my emotion into this woman. I am not right when she's not around. I'm not. And I'm willing to admit that, and I'll tell her all the time instead of telling her how pitiful I am when she's not around, I just tell her everything is better when you're here. Everything is better. I'm better. Life is better. Everything is better when you're around. And you can't pour from an empty cup, though, right? I mean, you can't just keep pulling and pulling and pulling from the person. You've got to be able to sow some seeds and give them some benefit in a relationship, too. But I can tell you, if you are one of those people, and I used to be, and I will soon be again, but if you're one of those people and you get to lay your head on the pillow every single night with your significant other next to you, you are among the most blessed and fortunate people in the world. And I can say that from experience because over the course of the last 2 years, I've probably spent more time without her than I have with her. I know that I have because, for about 8 months there, she was in New Mexico and I got to see her about once a month. And so I share that with you. Don't ever take that for granted. That's one of the things that we've talked about. I said, it's not going to the shows or the ball games and all that stuff. That's not the stuff that I miss day to day. It's just, hey, I'm going to Walmart. Do you need anything? Or like coming up here and breaking me a drink. It's like, hey, I just want to come up here and see what you're doing, check on you, whatever. Sit down watching Netflix, watching Big Bang Theory reruns or whatever, and just being close to each other. If you are a person that gets to experience that every single day, you are among the richest people in the world. Don't ever, ever, ever take that for granted. Because I did for many years. It's kind of like, I got this going on. I got a book signing. I got to go to this. I got to go to the ball game. Got to travel, And then one day it's gone for a while. And all of a sudden you realize how much you need that. And so I share that with you to be open, but also to don't take those moments for granted. Don't. Because I'm going to tell you, there may come a time when you got to be apart. And maybe it's an extended period of time. And I look back over in hindsight and I think, I don't know how I made it. And that sounds so pitiful, but it's the truth of the matter. The first couple of months, it's like, we're doing Rock Vegas, and I've got this, and I've got that. I always got somewhere to be. It's fine. And then, I got to November, and I look up, I'm like, wait a minute. Where is my wife? Where is my life? Right? And so I was like, I'm not going to live this way anymore. So we began to formulate an exit strategy. And so you can change your life, and you can change your life for the better. But I will tell you this, and I probably said it on the show before, I would sell the business and the house and follow her around the country if that's what it took. Because that's what matters to me. You may feel differently, right? But there are people in your life that you value above all. And it's important that they always understand that. And understand, too, that don't ever, ever, ever underestimate the hole your absence would leave in the lives of people you love. Whether you're contemplating suicide, or whether you're contemplating, divorce or separation or whatever. And I understand that sometimes that's necessary, right? I get it. But the reality of it is there are people that love you. I love you. Even if I don't know you, I appreciate your contributions to my life by listening to this show and buying the books and subscribing to the website. But at the end of the day, we're all part of the same experience. We're all part of this. We're all living the same human experience. And sometimes we need a soundtrack to kind of give us a little uplifting message. And that's what Disturbed does for me. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. You can find me on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. Roy is on Twitter and on Spotify, where you can find our wonderful list at Dogmatic67, DAWGMATIC 67. It's so interesting, too, how Roy has become such a part of my weekly life, right? Sometimes we get a chance to talk and break bread, but, Roy has become an indispensable part of this show and gets nothing from it other than the fact that he gets to claim that he's my friend for whatever that's worth. And Roy is my friend, and I love it when they come to town. And he's also a rocker, and he's also a guy, too, that loves Mississippi State, so maybe consider giving him a follow. He won't be tweeting out pictures of his food, things like that. But you're always looking for cool people to follow. Well, Roy's a good guy to follow. He's not going to load up your feed with extraneous material that means nothing to you. It's mainly Mississippi State stuff. And so be sure and check him out. And as always, if you got ideas, let us know. We just might use them here on the show. Final segment of the show brought to you as always by Campus Bookmart, a Starkvillian institution. I love Campus Bookmart. You love Campus Bookmart. Next time you're in town, go by and celebrate being back in Starkville by seeing their smiling faces. Go by and get your interlocking MSU merchandise. Of course, Campus Bookmart, the official home or the official host of the university unveiling of the new Vintage Vault interlocking MSU logo. Be sure and check it out and support a Starkville business. If you can't make it to town, visit them on the World Wide Web at campusbookmart.net. And by being a loyal Boneyard listener, we'll give you a phrase that pays. That is BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than $75, absolutely incomplete. And I can tell you, with all this new Mississippi State merch that's available to you, you're going to spend $75, and you'll be glad you did. Be sure and check them out as always. And again, you're running out of time to outfit the family, but you've still got time to get some online orders in and then be able to wear those wares on the way to Stark Vegas next weekend when you come and bring the cowbell hell on southeastern Louisiana. CampusBookmart.net. Again, promo code BSR. All right, let's spend a little time talking about Western Michigan. This week we're doing our non-conference previews. Once we begin to play these teams, we'll revisit these and just kind of see how they're doing in season, who has been like the stars for them, who are their contributors, what their injury reports look like. So we'll get a little more in depth as we go. But it's kind of a preseason glance. We discussed Arizona on Monday, if you haven't gone back and listened to that show yet. But looking back at the 2022 season for Western Michigan, be our first meeting with these guys, just so you know, too. They opened up last year with a loss at Michigan State. Very competitive game, though. And Michigan State was preseason top 15. 35-13 was your final, but it was a competitive game. The next week they get into MAC play. They go to Ball State, and they beat the Cardinals 37-30. The next week they host Pitt, which is interesting. Pitt going to Kalamazoo, Michigan. Competitive game again. But in the end, the difference in the weight programs makes a difference as Pitt wins 34-13. They go across the country and take on San Jose State and lose that ball game 34-6. San Jose State, not a great team. The next week, they take on the University of New Hampshire back home in Kalamazoo. That's a 44-7 win. Eastern Michigan in the MAC. The in-state rival, they lose to those guys 45-23 there at Waldo Stadium, which is the home venue for Western Michigan. The Bobcats of Ohio go in homecoming and ruin the weekend 33-14 win for Ohio. The next week, Western Michigan figures it out. They go and take down Miami of Ohio 16-10. Miami of Ohio is the alma mater of Mike Nemeth. Former Mississippi State media relations director, and current Gene's Page columnist. Following week, they lose a tight game in Bowling Green, Ohio, 13-9. We played Bowling Green too. They lose to Northern Illinois, 24-21. They bounce back to beat Central Michigan, 12-10 over in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. I'm sure that was a fun game. not a lot of scoring, and they close out with a 2014 win over the Rockets of Toledo on Senior Day. That game happened to be on a Wednesday. It's interesting, too. You go back and look. We talk about Maction. Like, every one of these games down the stretch was not on Saturday. Like, the last Saturday game was Miami of Ohio, and they play on 3 consecutive Wednesdays and then a Friday to close out the year. That's an interesting dynamic to me. So 5-7 overall last year and 4-4 in their conference. And again, they do end the year with back-to-back wins. So probably a little more of a positive feeling heading into the offseason to win those ball games, to feel like they're somewhat maybe headed in the right direction. We'll see. That's the big part of all this. Is like, everybody talks and everybody has opinions, but we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So the thing about the MAC is, you never know from year to year, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons we love it. You get Maction After Dark on ESPN. It's great. It's wonderful. All right, so kind of working through this thing here, kind of thinking about, what's it going to look like. They want to run the football. They have run the football last year. Didn't work out quite as well. And a lot of that's got to do with offensive line protection, things like that. And, so we'll see. Kind of a rebuilt offensive line. They got a couple pieces back. That's a tough draw for them, having to take on a defense like us where, number one, we're athletically superior, but also it's a scheme you don't see very often. The angles and the twists and the stunts and the stuff that we do is somewhat unique to this 3-3-5 scheme that Zach Arnett employs. And so it's tough to get ready. And you're already you're already on the downside of the talent differential. Then in addition to that, you got to see a pretty unorthodox defense. So we'll see. Leading returning running back last year, Sean Tyler, is gone. So going to be debuting some new backs. They worked the transfer portal and tried to get some guys out here this spring. Of course, they had a couple of guys kind of emerge. But, again, kind of a rebuilt patchwork offensive line with a new bell cow at running back in a scheme that expects to run the football. Could see some growing pains with that for sure. They have not settled on a quarterback unless they've done it here in recent days. But they do employ the quarterback run as well. So you'll see some spread elements and some quarterback run when we do play these guys. A lot of skill guys from last year's team is gone, so you don't expect this to be a step forward for them. You really don't. Should be a game that we should manage. Of course, we're going to play them much later in the year when they already have maybe found a sense of themselves. Defensive coordinator change there, Lou Esposito is the defensive coordinator there. They made the coaching change. He was retained. They're a team, obviously, that kind of prides themselves on slowing things down, kind of shortening the game on you. It's one of the reasons, when you play good defense, you can stop the run and run the football. You can win those ball games that are ultimately a little more competitive and a little tightly contested. But the reality of it is I just don't think this team is going to have what they need. I think from a personnel standpoint, not just with us, but in there's just a lot. And again, it's a new coaching staff, but the reality of it is there's going to be so much to have to overcome. You're making some schematic changes, you lose some big players. They had several guys hit the portal and ultimately land somewhere else. They did get some incoming traffic as well. Andre Carter comes in from Indiana, Brennan Siskey from Florida State. So you've got some Power 5 players that are there looking for more playing time, and how much they get kind of remains to be seen. Probably one of their best prospects on the team as far as pro goes is Mason Nelson, a big 300-pound defensive tackle. We'll see what he can do. If he can eat up some space and allow his linebackers to make some plays. Expected to be more of a 3-4 type scheme. So we'll see how that works for them. But defensively in a secondary could be a leaky group out there. And so, we'll see how things progress with them. But, again, this is a game that we expect to win, and we should win rather handily, to be honest with you. Let's take a look at this 2023 schedule for these guys. And, again, with the MAC conference, from year to year, you just never know who's going to rise from the bottom and then surprise. And I guess they could. I mean, I think looking at it on paper, you look at it and say, you know what, this is probably not a good year for them. May see a setback this year as they begin to laid a foundation for a future. But they open up, should be a win for them. They open up August 31st. So 8 days from now, if you're so inclined, you can watch St. Francis play at Waldo Stadium against Western Michigan on ESPN+. If you're looking for something to watch on Thursday night and you want to watch a future Bulldog opponent, 8 days from now, you can watch Western Michigan play. Should be a win. The next week, they get the benefit of a longer work week, having played on Thursday. They will go to Syracuse for week 2. That's a loss, which will make them 1-1. Then the next Saturday, they head to Iowa. All right, that's a loss. It's 1-2. They get Toledo at home. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt here and say, okay, toss-up game, conference game, team they beat last year. We'll go with that, make them 2-2. They have to travel to Ball State, and I don't know a lot about Ball State this year. Maybe you do. Toss-up game, let's favor the home team here. So that makes them 2-3. The next week, they come to Mississippi State. It's October 7th. That's the wife's birthday. That's a loss. Makes them 2-4. At home against Miami, Ohio, a team they beat last year. And so let's go with the dub here and go 3-4. They got to go to Ohio and take on the Bobcats on the road. Let's go with the loss there, 3-5. They have to go to Eastern Michigan, a team that beat them pretty handily last year. Let's give that also to a loss in the loss column, makes them 3-6. Central Michigan, that's going to be at home. That's the battle for the cannon, as they call it. I don't know, Military Appreciation Day and Battle for the Cannon. Let's go with the home team, make it 4-6. Northern Illinois, and then Bowling Green to close it out. So I think you're probably looking at like a 5-7 type year. Maybe 4-8, maybe 6-6. I don't think this is a team that's going to set the woods on fire by any stretch of the imagination. And again, you begin to work through this. Again, a lot of changes within the organization in a league that is very unpredictable. And so, yeah, they could pop up and do some things. But I know many of you like to watch and kind of prepare, do your own game planning. And you're going to be able to watch them play, if you want to, first 3 ball games of the year, if you're so inclined. But that ball game against Ball State, I don't know that that's going to be televised even on ESPN+. And so you want to get a first glance at them. Probably your best bet is against Syracuse or against Iowa. Probably see how they match up against Iowa. Again, Iowa's a very physical football team too. They're probably not as skilled as we are. But they're a team that'll beat you up at the line of scrimmage. I think that's an important thing to think about, too, is, what's this team going to look like? What's both teams going to look like by the time this ball game rolls around October 7th? And, again, that's about 6 weeks from now. It's crazy to think about that. But, again, I like the way that the schedule sets up for us. I kind of like having that non-conference game later in the year so we can rest some guys if we need to. Like that. Some people want to play all of them up front. Or play 3 up front and play 1 before rivalry week, and we're doing that too with Southern Miss, which again I think is it's a calculated risk. It's going to say it for why I see it. I think Southern Miss, even though I think we win the ball game, we may have to play a lot longer. I don't think you can discount those guys, and we're going to talk about them on Friday, kind of what to expect. A team that's certainly capable of winning a Sun Belt Conference. I don't think Western Michigan is going to be the factor in the MAC. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think so. I think most prognosticators have them last in their division. So it may skew more towards 3-9, 4-8 for them. But again, there's so many toss-ups in all this deal too, and you're kind of looking at the the preseason All MAC team, and there's a bunch of these lists out there. Everybody's always got some questions. Everybody's always got some ideas of how everybody should look. But you look to the first team offense, not a single player from Western Michigan on the list. Look through the first team defense, not a single Western Michigan player on the list. You look through the second team offense, there is center Jacob Gideon is a second teamer according to Athlon Sports. That's the first mention of a Western Michigan player on the list. And you get a little bit deeper, and then there's Kenny H. Lovely, a cornerback that makes a second team defense. He did lead them in interceptions last year, if I'm not mistaken. But you start working through this, and you just see there's just not many names here from the people that follow this league that are kind of giving thumbs up to. Only 2 players in 3 teams from Western Michigan that even get a mention. You get all the way down to the 4th team, and you see receiver Jelani Galloway, who's a guy that's potentially a breakout player for them. But outside of that, there's just not much mention of these guys. And again, you begin to think a talent deficient team following a coaching change, expectations aren't going to be high. So again, as we work through this, you feel like, hey, Southeastern should be a dub. Arizona should be a dub. May be more difficult than it was last year. I think the humidity here is our friend in games like that. It's the thing. That's the thing too. It's so interesting to me. Like people out west, oh, it's so hot. Yeah, it is. It's hot, but you don't have the humidity. People are like, oh, but it's still no. And then they come here and they're like, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. Did I die and go to hell? No, it just feels like it, and that's a little bit hyperbole. It's going to be a lot worse. But that said, again, you start thinking about these non-conference games, and again, we'll preview Southern Miss on Friday. State should be able to win all 4 of them, and we need to. We need to win all 4 of these games. I think of the games on our schedule, Western Michigan is probably the second easiest game on the schedule. I know people hate to hear that, but when you begin to think about talent differential and kind of the current state of the program, Southeastern Louisiana is a winning team, but they're also from the FCS. So from an athletic standpoint, they shouldn't be able to compete, but don't be surprised if they don't come in here and hit a couple of big plays just to kind of make things interesting. But then there's Western Michigan. And I think when you start looking at, the degree of difficulty, Western Michigan is probably just right there with Southeastern. You'd like to think they've got a different brand of athlete, and they certainly should. They're a Division I program, but also, too, they've had some Power 5 transfers and things of that nature. But this is a team that is not expected to do much this year. Again, I think 5-7 is probably the ceiling for this team unless they just happen to just absolutely surprise somebody. But should be a losing team again this year, and a game that Mississippi State should win handily. All right, in the final moments we have left, I want to talk a little bit about future football schedules. The announcements have come out, about some of the non-conference teams are going to play, and they've already set the SEC schedule for 2024. Next year, too, in the non-conference, I'll run through this. We're going to play the Eastern Kentucky Colonels in the season opener. That's going to be August 31st of next year, and then we will travel to Tempe, Arizona. How much fun is that going to be? We went to Arizona last year. We'll get Arizona this year. We get Arizona State next year at their place. That'll be fun to go to Mountain America Stadium. The following Saturday, we open up with 3 non-conference events. The UMass Minutemen will make their return to Starkville. I think the last time we played them here was in 16. I think that's right. But nevertheless, so 3 non-conference games to open, and then later in the year, we're going to play. Let me look here. Yeah, we're at Georgia, Arkansas, Florida, Missouri, A&M. We're at Ole Miss. That will not be the regular season finale. Then we're at Tennessee and at Texas. Tough schedule, for sure. Tough schedule, no matter how you look at it. Flipping to 2025. Of course, they haven't set the conference schedule yet. Your 4 non-conference games are at Southern Miss, Arizona State, Alcorn State, Northern Illinois. That's an important game for us because those are 4 games that we should win, to say the least. And we need those games. We do. We need those games. But again, at Southern Miss to open August 30th down in Hattiesburg, you might want to go ahead and get your tickets now because, they're going to want you to buy season tickets to buy that game. And tough luck selling the rest of them. But again, Arizona State here, Alcorn State, and the NIU Huskies. 2026, we're going to have the directional schools, right? The Louisiana Monroe Warhawks come in, and then we go to Minnesota. That's a bit of a drive. I've made that trip. I've made that drive to Minneapolis, Minnesota. The Twin Cities, really nice area up there. That's another one of those Power 5 games, and it could be removed. We could be playing a 9-game SEC schedule by then. But as of now, we're expected to play Minnesota. That's a game, of course, that could change. The Troy Trojans come back to Starkville, and then Tennessee Tech, the Golden Eagles, that year, 2026. Looking ahead to 2027, Minnesota comes here at Troy. I don't like that. And then the University of Tennessee, Chattanooga Moccasins, we still have a non-conference game to fill for next year and for 2027. We'll see how that plays out. But, who knows what Minnesota's going to look like in the event, again, we play them. 2028, it was announced yesterday that North Alabama, UNA, will be the home opener in 2028. We'll play the Texas Tech Red Raiders and then at Memphis, September 16th. I know how much you guys love going up there playing a Liberty Bowl. And one more game that we'll have to fill in. And again, that Power 5 mandate may change between now and then. You can never get too far ahead of the game. And if you're looking for the return trip to Lubbock, that's going to happen 2029, September the 8th. The following week, we'll host Memphis here at Mississippi State. And, of course, 2 more games to fill out on the schedule. We're going to play an FCS team every year. Washington State, and I'm curious if this gets played, but Washington State will be here in 2030. Again, these are the Mike Leach schedules, right? September 7th, Tulane will come here, and then we're at Southern Miss again. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I'm just telling you, I don't like going down there playing. And it's got nothing to do with them. It's just such a bad experience for our fans. 2031, we'll go to Washington State, Pullman, Washington. We can't go much further away than that. Probably never going to happen again in your lifetime if that game is played. And again, it's 8 years from now. A lot can change. And then the Southern Miss is scheduled to come here for that game, the return trip in there. And then finally looking at 2032, the only game we have set on that schedule is at Tulane. So we'll head down there and play at Yulman Stadium, a chance for us to go enjoy September weekend down there, probably Friday night. I'll see many of you on Bourbon Street. But you start looking at this and you begin to ask yourself, there's the Power 5 contracts. There's all this talk about going to a 9-game schedule. I still don't think that's going to happen right away. You may disagree, but the talking heads out there, it's like they run with whatever they've heard last. And I don't think a lot of these people think for themselves. If it's not financially feasible for us as a conference to go to 9 games, we're not going to do it. I've belabored that point on the show before. I'm not going to do it again here today. But it makes no sense for the SEC to beat each other up and lessen the probability of getting more teams in the playoff by playing each other. You got 14 teams in the league right now. You're about to go to 16. And so if we're going to play that extra game, then that's 8 losses. Whereas if you play the Power 5 mandate, continue that, and not have to play non-conference games, you've got a chance to win 16 games and improve your strength of schedule and improve your positioning. It's just is not in the best interest of the league for us to go to 9. I won't be convinced otherwise unless ESPN or another media partner comes in and puts down a huge, significant difference in the TV deal. Why would we make it more difficult for ourselves and not share in the financial benefit of that? And again, people said, but Steve, I'm so tired of us playing, Alcorn State or Central Connecticut Tech or whatever. That game's not going to go away. That's what I don't think. That's the argument that I always see. I'd rather see a big matchup. Well, basically, instead of us playing Texas Tech, you'll probably fill that with Oklahoma. And so what's the better matchup for us? Okay, well, we're going to get a chance to go to Arizona State. The novelty of that will probably influence you to buy tickets. But when you're going to be able to play Oklahoma, every third year or so, well, that's not a wise use of your entertainment dollar. Wouldn't it be fun to go to Minnesota and go up there and say, hey, I was there when we played Arizona. I was there we played Arizona State and Texas Tech and Washington State. I think those are more intriguing matchups because the only time you see those games are in bowl games. And a chance to go up there and see their campuses and have an opportunity to do that. To me, that's the better fan experience. But you and I both know This is not driven by fan experience. It's driven by finances, every bit of it. And again, don't buy into this. Well, we're going to play non-conference games, so we're going to get rid of playing, Southwest Louisiana. Not going to happen. You'll just lose the Washington State. You'll lose the Arizona State. You'll lose Minnesota. That's what you're going to lose. So it's not going to be beefing up the schedule, right? And I don't think the SEC should ever do anything just because the Pac-12 did it. They're like, oh, but they got non-conference games. You should do it too. Well, how many years did we were the only league that had a conference championship game, and the Pac-12 didn't. The Big Ten didn't. Then, of course, they went to legends and leaders and all that sort of stuff. Greg Sankey is a visionary, and Greg is going to do what's best for the SEC. And Greg is going to work with our university presidents to ensure that we get the best deal for ourselves. We should not make it more difficult for us to get to the playoffs when so many other teams for years and years and years kind of negated the importance of a conference championship game. Then all of a sudden they began to see that, hey, the SEC became the dominant force. And so, again, I look back at all this and I think to myself, there are a lot of people out here that are really just kind of throwing caution to the wind for the sake of what they believe is a better TV deal and not thinking about the impact it has on the individual seasons for the teams that are involved in their conference play. And I think it'll be interesting too. I know that John Cohen was very much an advocate for the 8-game conference schedule and the 4 non-conference games. How does his vantage point change now that he's at Auburn? What's in the best interest of Auburn? And John's a guy that has argued against changing the scheduling format. Well, if that's the case, if he continues that same line of thought, then all of a sudden we have another vote at Auburn that maybe we didn't have before. And so that you have Zach Selman, of course, that understands what's best for Mississippi State. And so I think this 9-game conference schedule thing is probably going to go on hiatus for a bit. But the bottom line now is we're getting ready to go play the 2023 season. I'll be back on Friday. We'll talk a little bit about Southern Miss, kind of preview what their season's going to look like. And we're going to wrap up our camp coverage this week over at genespage.com. Next week we'll be in game week. We'll be talking about Southeastern, and we'll try to make that matchup as sexy as we possibly can. But the reality of it is you're not coming to see a great matchup. You're coming to see Mississippi State play a football game. And I remind you, too, it's been an awfully long time since we've had a game to attend or to follow. And if you're like me, the dog days of summer have really drug on. It's really been one of those deals. I remember how great 2021 was. You play baseball through the month of June. All of a sudden you get to July, and like by the time you take your family vacation and do your school shopping, it's football season, right? I mean, I miss those days because as soon as we get done with all that stuff, we're in the fall camp or in preseason camp, whatever you want to call it. But for back-to-back years, we just haven't had anything going on in the summer unless you took the family down to Gulf Shores or something. And so I look forward to us having a big academic and athletic year this year. I'm eager to hear the enrollment numbers now that the class is in session, to hear perhaps how we've grown. Are we maintaining? Are we losing ground? What are we doing? I'm a firm believer in this. The best marketing that you have for new students is the strength of your athletics programs. That adds something to the college experience when you can go and see meaningful games. And I'll give you a good example. Ian, my youngest, who is now a student at Mississippi State, majoring in criminology. For a long time he wanted to go to Southern Miss because they did such a great job recruiting him. And in the end, all of my girls, of course, went to Mississippi State. And they were like, Ian, you're not going to enjoy that as much as you will at Mississippi State. And Audrey was like, it's an SEC school. And he loves basketball. He does. He is an NBA freak. Loves following the draft and that sort of stuff. And I just kind of told him one day, I said, just think about this. Chris Jans and the Bulldog basketball program is about to really take some positive steps. And not to mention, you're going to be able to go see Mississippi State play Kentucky and play Arkansas and play Tennessee and play these teams that are going to have players that are future NBA players. If you go to Southern Miss, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're going to be able to go see players, the future stars of the NBA at Humphrey Coliseum, in a newly renovated Humphrey Coliseum. That made a difference with him. because in his mind, hey, I can go to Southern Miss and get a good degree and have a good experience and be close to my grandparents and dad, mom, got a lot of good friends down there. I'll be 3 hours from home. I can kind of do my own thing. Or I can go to Mississippi State like most of my family did and enjoy sitting in the student section, being in the hump, being at Davis Wade Stadium, hanging out at Duty Noble Field, and seeing games that truly matter. And if you don't think those things work hand in hand, you're kidding yourself. And that's why it's so important for us to brand and market ourselves in a great way and recruit at a high level. Because young people, and I guess it's not just something that's germane to young people, people want to be affiliated with a winner. And it's like, hey, I can go do some amazing things, and I can see some amazing things as a student at Mississippi State because of the strength of these athletic programs. Then think about your own experiences, right? I mean, how many times people say, oh, yeah, I remember this game. Me and some of my college buddies got in the car and we drove to Arkansas and watched Mississippi State win that game. I was there in 15 when Beniquez Brown blocked the field goal. And you wouldn't ordinarily have had that memory if you'd gone somewhere else. And there are a lot of people that are Mississippi State and Ole Miss fans that go to Southern Miss. They do. And they just don't cheer for Southern Miss. And there are some other people that are incredibly passionate about Southern Miss athletics, and they're very bitter and resentful about the fact that they're no longer considered a Big Three in Mississippi. But this should be a very good athletic year for us. And I think when you begin to take inventory yourself, and probably the thing right now you're probably the most concerned about is baseball, and rightfully so. But right now, we're getting ready to play football. And then we're going to play men's and women's basketball. And so I think this fall semester is going to be one that we all look back and have some fond memories of. My expectations for this football program, and I think we all can agree that both basketball programs are trending in the right direction. Both teams make the tournament last year. I think the expectations to make it again this year, right? And so when you start working through the fact that we're going to play football and we're going to get through fall baseball and we're going to get through our non-conference and men's and women's hoops, I think we're going to have a lot to celebrate come the holidays. Ensure that somebody in your family has one of my books under the Christmas tree this year. You can get all of my sports books and the newest book, When the Bottom Falls, at whenthebottomfalls.com. You can pre-order When the Bottom Falls. That'll be out in a few weeks. You can get Alpha Dogs, Stark Villains, Flim Flam, and Dog Pile right there. And, of course, your Stark Villains gear available at starkvillains.com. Get some T-shirts, get some hoodies. We'll get together and take some pictures together. How cool is that? I love that logo. I do. And I love the phrase Stark Villain. So be sure and check that out. And as always, come be a member with us over at genespage.com, the Mississippi State affiliate for 247 Sports, the most dominant name in what we do. I thought about that earlier today as I'm looking through the website. I remember a time, you remember it wasn't too terribly long ago, you went and got the local paper to read a story about Mississippi State. A story. That was it. You got a story. And then on some days you get a column. So you may get two. We're giving you several stories every single day. And that access and that coverage was not available until Al Gore invented the internet, right? And then, we had the rise of fan sites and web pages and things like that. And now we're credentialed members of the Southeastern Conference and around the country and do a better job covering Mississippi State than anybody else, and always will. So come by and check us out. Be a part of that. Like us on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter. And we love it when you share our content, too. If you read an article you like, please share that. And share the show as well. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.